Go sweet crazy, lovesick crazy. Not like Electra, who is just crazy all the way and mean. And really, I think when the character like this is so multi-dimensional, any human emotion you can fit right into the character, really.
Now, before we open the microphones, you told me that you have had a radio show in Russia?
No, here in New York.
Oh, here in New York.
Here in New York we have 2 radio stations now, Russian-speaking radio stations. And when the very first one just opened, I think it was already now almost 4 years ago, I had a radio show. It was my program. We called it Let's Talk About Opera, but some other way, something like that, in which we were trying to explain, because I had a co-host. It's not that I'm, we, the Electra, the princess. No, I had a co-host. So we were trying to explain to people that opera is an entertainment. It's a more sophisticated form of entertainment, but still. And so, of course, we talk first about the cell phones. We have so many themes
Ringtones,
from the opera. Yes, and look at all the cartoons. The most famous one is the William Tell, Rossini.
Sure.
And so we just started showing people that actually they know a lot of material, a lot of music from the opera. And then we had so many topics. It's such an incredible world to discover, even for me when I start working in it, because then you have to go through so much of the material. And we've been talking about how it was created, all the politics around it, because there are so many things was happening. And one of the program was about the small roles, which are actually it's like main roles, like Gremin in Eugene and Yegin. It's only one area, but it steals the show. Or Sparafucili, for instance.
So you don't just focus on, say, Russian opera?
No.
But you do broadcast to a Russian audience?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. And the audience is very, very well educated in this. It was very much in style.
And are you hearing from your audience, from your Russian audience?
Yes, they actually were sending me poems. And the funny thing is that I always thought that my voice is very breathy when I speak. And so I was never even given interviews because I was very ashamed of my voice, kind of shy. And so when I starting these programs, I would go to the grocery store, or because we all go to this Russian grocery, Russian hairdresser, Russian dentist. They would say, "Oh my God, I know this voice." I was once parking a car and I asked in English, the man who was standing right before me. I said, "Can you please move your car a little bit?" And he turned to me. He said, "I know your voice. Are you in the radio?" So. Yeah, I became quite known.
That takes an unusual voice for people to be able to pick it out. Tell me about the role of Gilda. You're covering this role.
Mm-hmm.
This is a loving daughter who also defies her father in a very deep way. That's a couple of things to keep in mind when you're preparing this role.
Well, you see, I look at this a little bit differently. She's a very strong human being. And I don't think she defies her father. She stands for her love. Because for her it's such an important idea. The love is, it's not this like in Romeo and Juliet, we'll say, or in this just romantic way of emotion. For her, especially when she hears the name, because we see for her it becomes an obsession to know the name. Because she doesn't know her father's name, she basically even doesn't know her own name, she doesn't know anybody's name. And the whole fuss around the name in a duet with the tenor. Even she let him kiss her after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, for her, it's not just being emotionally involved with somebody, but she thought that she shares something incredible, because her father, who she lived a long time with, she didn't know his name, so basically they didn't have something incredible in common. You know where I'm getting? It's difficult for me to explain, but I think it's just such an incredible, huge, important thing happened to her. And so basically I think she died not only for love, she died for the idea of identity.
So do you think there might even be a bit of a resentment against her father for holding things back from her?
In a way, yes, but in the end she died for her father. Because when she was listening there, they said, let's kill anybody who will come here. And he was supposed to come and bring the rest of the money. So she didn't die for Duke, she died for her father.
So this is what you kept in mind for why she gives up her own life at the very end of the opera instead.
She saved her father, and she stood up for her idea of belonging.
Now, you talk about the role of Elektra, and singing roles with not quite as much sweetness in them. Of course, Elektra not only gets to be greedy and grabby, but she gets to have a great big crazy mad scene at the end, to the point where she falls down over in a faint and she's carried off.
She actually died.
Is she actually dead at the end?
Yes, that's what you know. They told me that she's dead.
Oh, for goodness sake! That I wasn't sure of.
Well, did you see these big convulsions in the very end?
Yeah. I thought she was just really stamping her foot very hard, saying, "I want him." But it's actually her giving up the...
everything.
Yeah.
Because after the Neptune announcement, and I liked it a lot, with this little tiny something in the orchestra starting, you wouldn't even guess that the med scene is coming. So basically when she said, "Oh well, oh wow," she was so shocked and she was so stunned. It took a good 2 pages for her to get wind up, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like she will click immediately. And so she was getting more and more and more and more, and then she just completely lost it.
So what other sorts of roles would you like to take on that are more in the mean vein, possibly?
Well, unfortunately, there's not that much of the mean girls, but...
not too many, as you say, for your voice type.
No, but I really would like to sing more Mozart.
More Mozart.
More Mozart. For instance, Donna Anna.
Mm-hmm.
She's not mean girl, but she's manipulative. And this is another interesting thing to play, because she is very well brought up. And she's not manipulative in the mean way. She doesn't even know that she's being manipulative. It's her way of dealing with things. That's what I believe.
The characters and the parts that they play, I mean, their part in the story seems to mean a lot to you. I imagine the music means a lot, but it sounds like the part that the part that your role plays in the story means an awful lot to you as well.
We're talking about which character now?
Any role that you want to sing.
Absolutely. Well, I like always to, when I first get the role, to read what was going on in the time period. Because when we talk about Gilda, for instance, there are certain way they would talk or not to talk to their parents. Speaking of that, he was holding the truth from her, but in a way they didn't even share things with each other that much, especially children and parents. Or when I did Lucia, and I remember the first time when she's talking to a priest, you have to remember how then they were talking to priests. They couldn't even look them in the eye, right? So these kind of things. Or something with, for instance, Contessa, which I really want to sing at some point in Le Nozze di Figaro. Sometimes I've done lots of master classes. Sometimes when the young singers go and sing it, they sing with this kind of voices, and I always ask them, what's her name? And this is another greatest thing about this Contessa. People forget that she's Rosina.
Yes, that's right.
And we just go to Barbiere, and yes, it's different composer, but it's the same, you know, the first book, right, of, we have the 3 books.
That's right.
The Barbiere, and then Le Nozze. So it's just this lively girl who is just having fun and running around. And this is the same girl. She's maybe 21 at this time.
That's right.
So all these transitions and just to go through pain. But what kind of pain? For instance, O mio babbino caro. What kind of pain is that? She's 15 and she's not saying, oh, vorrei morir. It doesn't mean vorrei morir like Tosca vorrei morir. It's the girl who is just spoiled. And she said, if you wouldn't let me get this ring, I'll just die. Without meaning it. So when... it's just an incredible thing, and I think we're so lucky to be able to even express our own emotions through all of this.
You're listening to soprano Olga Makarina. She's our guest during this intermission.
I'm sorry, but isn't it incredible just for a couple of seconds to hear the real thing, the real life, what's going on at the Met, even during the intermission?
To be able to hear the audience.
Yes, the noise.
And when we take our breaks, we bring up the sound of the house, and you can hear the audience, and you can hear sometimes the orchestra members are coming back into the pit, and they're starting to warm up again.
For me, when the orchestra just starts warming up, different places, all these different little things. Just something, it's like in the blood, something starts boiling. It's so incredible.
When I started doing the Metropolitan Opera broadcast, that was some of the most exciting moments that I had, was just before the broadcast began, and I could hear the sound of everyone milling around and the sound of the orchestra.
Just expecting magic just happen in any time soon.
You're so listening to Olga Makarina, who is my guest during this intermission of Rigoletto. When you really struggled when you first came to New York, didn't you?
Well, but the good thing is that I didn't really know about that.
We never know when we're struggling, do we?
No.
Tell us about that.
Well, sometimes we do, but I had an advantage of, first of all, not speaking English. Well, say that my name is Olga and I was born in such and such, but and plus I didn't know any difference. We left Russia, Soviet Union at the time in 1989, and which was a very closed country. So when we came here, everything was so new and so exciting and so frightening at the same time. So everything we've been going through, and I use words so much today, but I hope people will forgive me.
And you came straight to New York?
Yes, we came straight to New York. We immigrated and we came right here.
That's hard enough.
Well, now I've been blessed. Really, the career is going well and I've been traveling a lot. New York still is the best city in the world.
But you just didn't know how to get started here?
No.
It seemed very alien.
Everything. Completely, well, I can't even find the word, probably alien. But alien in like extraterrestrial even.
Tell me what some of your experiences were.
Well, somebody told me that you just go to the Metropolitan Opera and audition there and they will tell you what to do. So we came straight here, being fresh basically from my airplane. I didn't speak any English, so I brought a friend who set an audition time for me. And so I got this audition time and they told me bring a pianist. And in the building where we lived, the neighbor was a Russian woman, and she could play some piano. And so she said, I'll play for you. So can you imagine, I came here, I brought my pianist, I did Estrano in Russian, and I was turning her pages.
You had to turn her pages?
Yes. I didn't know how it's done. We didn't have this thing in Russia, the audition thing. So I went there to Liszt Hall, and I was turning pages while singing and holding the C flat in the end, and that was really, now when I look back and when I told some people in the business later what I did, they said, you just killed yourself.
Oh, no.
But maybe, I don't even know who was auditioning me at the time, because I didn't understand anything. I just came in, I sang, and I was waiting for letter of, from the Met, so they will explain me.
To tell you what to do now that you've auditioned for the Met, now here's what's going to happen. And it never came.
Incredible. No, it never came.
So where did you wind up performing after that? Where did you get your experience?
This is another strange, long story. I mean, sometimes you really do feel that it's so many coincidences that probably there's really something. And I came from the country which we were pushed to be atheists. And so the whole idea of something, people call it different names, some super being or God or anything, but okay, I'll make a long story short. We immigrated, and then some other family we met on the street who just immigrated a couple of weeks after us, who came to New York. And when people will hear that we are musicians, everybody will just go get, oh my God, forget about it, you would never make it, go and do something else. And so when we met these people on the street and they heard that we speak Russian, they said, oh, you're Russian, so what are you doing? And my husband is a musician too. We both said, well, we are musicians. And they said, we are too. And so we started talking about it, and we're great friends. Now the man, his name is Alexander Markovich, he works at Steinway. He's a great piano tuner. He's been tuning pianos in Carnegie for so many concerts when Levine was actually playing, and so we're all very proud of him. His wife is teaching piano, but at that time we were all fresh and we didn't know what to do. But he had an aunt who was here living in States from the second wave of immigration, so it's about 17 years before us, and she had a grocery store. And she had a client who had a piano store, who had a client whose name was Alexander Romo, and he worked at the Met at that time. So when I didn't know what to do, and never said many letters, and I was getting desperate, my daughter was only 2, and I was sitting home without knowing what to do and trying to learn some English, and so I called him and said, what should I do? And he asked about other person, and then they asked about this person who had the store, and at that time Alexander Rom just bought a piano in that store, and we just been talking today that nobody gives phone numbers in this city, at least.
Nobody wants to give out their phone number.
It's just by some incredible coincidence they gave his phone number.
And you finally wound up
I called him because I
here.
didn't have any alternatives, and he was home. And so I told him, I said, I'm so sorry to bother you, but my name is Olga, and I really want to sing. Can you recommend me something? And he told me, I can't recommend you to anybody because word is, I don't know you. I can't just call people and tell that.
But it eventually worked out.
It worked out. It took a couple of months for us to get together, and then I came to his house, I sang, and I ended up staying the whole day. We sang everything he had, all his scores, and he said, okay, you need to go to college here.
Oh, and you went to the
I went to Manus College. He brought me there.
And now you are what we will be listening to here at the Metropolitan Opera, and you will be singing on Thursday night in the role of Gilda. Olga Makarina, it was so great for you to come in during this intermission.
Thank you very much, for having me, and it's really a dream come true.
We'll be talking to you again.
Manages to convince Maddalena that he really loves her. Now, Maddalena is a professional, in inverted commas, so she's been around a lot, and she actually puts her own life on the line, because she knows that Spara Fucile wouldn't think twice about cutting her throat as well, just for the fun of it.
So he's got some charm, at least. I have to ask you kind of a difficult question. The whole world is abuzz about the story of Roberto Alagna walking off stage after he was booed at La Scala, and I'm just curious, would you walk off stage in the same situation?
I mean, it's a very difficult question, because I wasn't in the same situation. I wasn't there. I've heard both arias, both of the premiere and both on the second, because they made the round of the world, and I think that the singing wasn't at all bad. Of course, there are different opinions. I really don't know how to answer that. I think that I just one comment which I would like to make is I'm a fan of Roberto Alagna. I grew up with his CDs, because I'm 28 now. So when he was sort of emerged on the international scene, I was buying his Romeo, his Faust. And so he's one of my idols. And one thing which I would like to point out, I hope that everyone doesn't forget 20 years of glorious singing, or 25, I don't know for how long he has been singing, just because of this incident. It's unfortunate, I don't know how I would tackle it myself, but I just hope that this one incident won't eclipse everything he's done, because he's done, some really great and beautiful things.
Well, I agree with you, and I have to say, I have been in that situation, and to sing something that's loud and high is one thing, but to sing something that's really sustained and have that kind of interruption, I know my nerve would be shattered, and so I personally don't agree with even the decision to not allow him to come back and finish his other performances. He is a wonderful artist. But I love talking to you. You're absolutely fantastic.
It's an honor to meet you. It was the first time I met you, and then I'm a fan of you as well, so let's hope the performance keeps on going well, and thank you to the audience for tuning in. Thanks for your support.
We look forward. Thanks, Joseph. This is Renée Fleming from the dressing rooms of the Met.
Her colleagues, I have to say, that is one soprano who can wear horizontal stripes. Is this a common occurrence that singers come backstage and hang out with you and watch what's going on?
Yes, especially during broadcast performances, because of the nature. It's in the afternoon. We have rehearsals going on at the same time during matinee performances, and we don't have them generally during the evening performances. So they're in the building for other reasons. It is rather unusual that they're wearing horizontal stripes, though.
Now, everything's going very well this afternoon, but there must be some times when Murphy's Law takes over and things don't quite go according to plan. From me, could you ask maybe that he not kill that poor girl this afternoon?
Yeah, it would be nice if we didn't have that sort of exchange of identities there. Thank you, George. And I want to start this off with a confession. I'm back here in slacks with vertical stripes, so sue me. Robert Lloyd is just spectacular. And when I think of virtuosic singing, what do you think I think of? High notes, roulades, runs. But his low F is something really extraordinary. The first time I saw him do this, as he sustained it not only across the stage, he's walking, by the way, and you don't hear that in his sound because it's perfect, but off stage, past the point where the orchestra has cut off, he is still singing this low F. Tell me a little bit about that, Robert. You've been doing this for a while.
Well, that comes and goes, that low F. You know, sometimes it lasts as long as I want it to last. And whenever it lasts as long as I want it to last, the audience applaud. It's most fascinating. If I can make it last until the bottom of the steps off the stage, the audience always applauds. A little bit shorter, and they don't. It's really uncanny. But it's a special note. You know, every bass aspires to do Sparafucili. There are one or two very bass roles that everybody wants to do. You know, Sparafucili, Sarastro. These are the core world of the bass.
Well, and we love dangerous men on some level, but, you know, you're supposedly the villain in this opera, and I always find it very interesting that you're the only one who has a sort of set of ethics. Everyone else seems to have absolutely no moral code. A deal's a deal. You've been paid for the job. Tell me about the character a little bit.
Exactly. He's a professional. That's all he is. He just kills people for money. He doesn't really think about the ethics of it. Actually, I always relate Sparafucili to Mephistopheles in a curious way. They're both gentlemen. They're both evil, but they're both gentlemen. And incidentally, I always think of Mephistopheles as a Frenchman because I sing the Gounod version of Mephistopheles. And Sparafucili is also a Frenchman. He comes from Burgundy, and he's very proud of the fact at the end of the little duet he says, "I'm a Burgundian."
That's true. So that sort of appeals to your English gentleman side. I love that. Now, here you are. Your feet are up. You look pretty relaxed. You've got all of this time before the third act. How do you get yourself energized again?
Well, I think, you know, before you go on the stage for anything, a sort of spasm of energy comes to you in the last kind of 10 minutes before you go on stage. I mean, adrenaline begins to kick in. I don't have to do anything to make it happen. When they call 10 minutes, adrenaline hits, and off you go. I'm sure you find the same.
It's a wonderful drug, absolutely, adrenaline. And I have to ask you this, because we all love this quartet, but don't you think Verdi, if he'd really thought about it, he would have made it a quintet?
No, there's a thought, yes. But what would the Sparafucili have been saying? He would have been saying, this is a tasty bit of victim I've got here, or some such thing. It doesn't quite fit in with the general mood of the quartet.
He'd be patting himself on the back again. Well, we met a long time ago. It was my Covent Garden debut, and I remember every day of that. You played my dad in Medea, and it was such an exciting experience for me, but I'm sure that I seemed green and just, you know, so young.
Well, it was very interesting. It was one of Covent Garden's least distinguished moments, I think, that production. I remember it as being full of rocks. I would call them rocky rocks. They tended to move when you walked on them. I don't know whether it struck you like that. But yes, I remember you coming, and you were very kind of beautiful and fresh-faced. But then a lot of beautiful sopranos come to Covent Garden, and we never see them again. But of course, we've seen a great deal of you over the years. It's fantastic.
Oh, I have to get you to write that down. That's wonderful. Thank you. I remember her being flown in that, and I thought, I forgot to be flown someday. Still hasn't happened.
And hello to our radio listeners. This is the quiz show. Okay, it's time to cast your vote for the audience survey. Last week, hundreds of people emailed us from all over the world, and 85% of you told us you thought that Salome was the scariest, scorned woman in opera. Well, I would certainly love to have a dance with that woman. Today we turn to the men. We tenors do not have brains. Hey! Who wrote that script? I'm sure it was a soprano. We shouldn't be telling these truths live, okay? Come on, here we go again. We tenors get to sing a lot of pickup lines to the ladies. So, here is a question for the listeners out there. Which of the following operatic pickup lines do you find the most irresistible? Just the words, without the music. And listen carefully because they are elaborate. There are 4 return to Margaret John to wait. Bye-bye!
You enjoy more, being a charmer or being evil?
You know, I like to do it all. I want to make everybody a little bit more evil, so they can serve me, no?
Indeed. Now, the bass in an opera often gets only one good aria, but in Faust, you have plenty of good tunes. We just heard the Golden Calf aria. Let's talk about your great tunes. Do you have a favorite?
So, my favorite tune is Serenade of Mephistopheles, of course. Yeah.
You also have wonderful costumes in this opera. You're wearing one now, this bright red costume. You also wear formal wear at the beginning of the opera, and the silver reptile suit, and more. So do these help you with your character?
You know, I don't want to talk about the costumes. It's too many of them. You know, yeah. I'm getting more tired to change than to sing. And formal would be enough. Yeah, I think.
Now, it's a very physical role. You do a lot of running around and jumping on tables in these costumes. Does this tire you out? Do you still have energy at the end of the opera?
You know, I'm still a young man, and I don't need to do anything special yet. But in the future, you know, we'll see. I will.
What is the biggest challenge of this role for you, Ildar? What is your favorite moment?
You know, this is a very complicated role. I have spent about a year to prepare myself as a singer and as an actor. And my favorite moment in the church, yeah, the place of God. Yeah.
You're married to mezzo Olga Borodina. Is she with you now?
No, unfortunately, she is not with me now. She's in Brussels. Yeah.
Do you ever
in Sansa Magdalena.
Do you ever have a chance to perform together?
Yeah, we have sung together in Italian Algeria here, and Carmen here also, and some concerts. Yeah, we have, and we have some plans for the future.
Another Russian bass has sung Mephistopheles at the Met. That's Fyodor Shalyapin, who made his debut, believe it or not, 100 years ago in 1907. So you are following him here in this great role. Did you learn about him when you were a student in Russia?
Oh, of course. I was born in Ufa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the place where Shalyapin started his great career. And of course, I know a great deal about him. Also, I started in Ufa, in the same city, and there are many other places I've loved his footsteps, and now I'm privileged to be here at the Met.
Well, we are privileged to have you here for this last performance of Faust Ildar Abdrazakov. Thank you so very much, our Mephistopheles. Now back to you, Margaret. This is Lauren Toulajian, live backstage at the Met.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren, and thank you, Ildar. I'm here with Beverly Sills. You know, we want a bass to be frightening when he plays the part, but he has to have charm because that makes him more horrible, doesn't it?
Yeah. I was tickled when he said too many costumes. He's more tired from changing than from singing. There was a production at the City Opera of Mephistopheles when Norman Tregel was the Mephisto, and he came, it was a famous photograph. He looks naked, and his whatever is painted onto a naked leotard.
I've seen that costume.
Yeah, and at first it's so horrifying, and then after a while it becomes quite sexy to watch him crawl all over the stage, and quite interesting to think of the devil nude. I mean, you were talking about he's the one with the pitchfork. Well, this is not the way they identified this fellow in Mephistopheles.
Well, you know, he gets rather reptilian in this production as well.
With the other
in the cathedral scene. He really looks like something out of prehistoric.
A little slimy.
Oh, really frightening. Devil and puppets probably got even a bigger jolt at that point.
Well, this is all interesting because, you know, usually the devil is very, very handsome, and the basses are very big fellows. But now we have a couple of handsome fellows here. I like the idea that Alvarez looks so attractive himself. It makes it much more interesting when you have two attractive men fighting for each other's evil whims. I like it this way.
We'll be talking.
To have the Met, the most important theater in the world, go in the house of every American and then of everyone in the world, I immediately thought it is going to be a big success.
In addition to being the debut live telecast from the Met, many Americans saw tenor Luciano Pavarotti perform for the first time that evening. Singing the role of Colline that evening was bass Paul Plishka. He remembers the drama of that night all too well.
It was the first live and really live broadcast on television. We were very nervous. I mean, everybody was very nervous, and it was an exciting night.
Scotto thought the choice of Bohème was perfect for the telecast, particularly for an audience who might be seeing their very first opera.
La Bohème is a story about young people that have no time. You don't need to understand words with Puccini. You have a story, and you have music that goes to your heart immediately.
And she was determined that the cameras wouldn't affect her stage performance.
I was very nervous when I was thinking that I was going to be on TV and be watched by such a huge audience. So I was a little nervous, but I had absolutely no intention to change my interpretation.
By 1977, Paul Plishka was already a veteran of many Met radio broadcasts.
In the past, when you had done radio broadcasts, everybody could sort of, knowing that you have to deal with accuracy and making sure that you're together and everything else.
But being on television, says Plishka, was a different kind of experience.
On the radio, people can't see that you're sort of staring at the conductor, so you can sort of back away from your acting a bit and concentrate a little bit more on keeping it musically correct. Yeah. But with the television, you have to really make your character look credible.
For Renata Scotto, having James Levine on the podium that night made it all the more special.
Of course, I always had Maestro Levine that I love him so much. I cannot tell you how much I have liked to work with him, and I love him, and I admire him.
Now jump from the first live from the Met television broadcast in 1977 to almost 30 years later, and the Met's first ever high-definition transmission into movie theaters. Renata Scotto applauds this new step.
I want to say something. I'm so excited about having opera going also in movie theater, where people can go and enjoy music for less money than going to the opera, and also not to think about dress up anything, just go for the joy of music. I think this is a great opportunity.
Beverly Sills, what about hearing the voices from that 1977 telecast again?
I have to say two things. When I listen to Luciano, I recall a night in the 70s in San Francisco, opening night of a new production of Lucia we did together. And in that production, after the mad scene, she's brought back on stage for his mad scene. And I was lying on this beer, whatever it was. And as I was listening to Luciano, I thought, I have not in my entire life heard singing like that, and I probably never will again. It was a quality voice that it just gave you goosebumps, and it always made me want to weep. It was sometimes very difficult to sing with him because I was so busy listening to him. And I have to say that with Plishka, I did Anna Bolena with him, and he was Henry VIII, and I mean he was Charles Lawton and everything thrown together with sheer gold. When I ran the New York City Opera and we did Puritani, I asked him to come over and do the bass role, and he did.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And it just stopped everything cold. It was,
Well, we've got goosebumps right here between the two of us. But now we're going to go backstage again to the dressing rooms, where Lauren Tulajan has caught up with our tenor today, Ramón Vargas.
Indeed, and I have goosebumps too, Margaret and Miss Sills. I'm here with Ramón Vargas, who plays Faust so wonderfully. He does some things that are not so honorable, Faust, but he's very human. Do you sympathize with him?
Good evening and good night in in Europe. Yes, I think he's very, very human. What he does is very, very human. When he was old and sick and alone, he was bad. And he speaks also bad about everything, about the world, about the life. And then when the things are good, when he's handsome, he's rich, he is healthy, he is very happy in the life, is perfectly. Now he sings this beautiful aria like a priest. He says so beautiful words. He speaks about the love and about everything. Then he says to her, maybe God put you in my way. This is could be cynical, but it's not cynical. I think we are like that. The human beings we could be like that.
Do you think he really loves Marguerite, Faust?
I think he doesn't realize immediately what it means, the love. He was very old. Maybe he put all his life in the science, and maybe the last time that he has a tete-a-tete with a girl was 40 years ago. And now he wants to recuperate the time. and he doesn't realize what means the love until the end. I think after he realized that she is a special person.
Now, in the next act, you sing this most famous aria, Salut de Mer, when Faust romanticizes the humble cottage where Marguerite grew up. And what do you focus on as you approach such a well-known piece?
This is a hard piece to sing, and because all the people knows it. And to make something, to recreate something new in some music that is really very well done is hard. And I think I am totally concentrate in the words, and this beautiful music is what I think. I think in the sentiments that in this moment has this Faust, this guy that is, if you see him in another way, he's a poor guy, and in another way, it's very extraordinary music and extraordinary words, what he says.
This is the final performance of Faust this season. Any ambivalence as you perform it for the last time? Is it hard for you to let go as you move on to the next opera?
No, I have a little bit break, and then I go to Luisa Miller in Munich. This is good. I'm very happy to do it. And
is it hard for you to leave the character behind? Does Faust stay with you?
No, the Faust not stay. No, I am a little bit far from the Faust, but the music stays always. It's so beautiful.
Now, you also sang Lenski and Eugene Onegin, also Verdi, Bel Canto for the Met, Puccini and Mozart. Quickly, how do you approach all the different languages? Is it difficult or easy for you by now?
Well, the most difficult maybe is the Russian. The Russian was not easy. But now with the French, with the Italian, it's okay. This is not so bad.
Ramón Vargas, our Faust, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the rest of the opera.
Many wishes to everybody.
Thank you very, very much.
It's tenor Ben Heppner. Hi, Ben.
Hello.
Are you ready for the quiz?
Well, I've got my Toll House. No, it's not cookies, it's brothers, all organized, and we've got our questions, and we're armed and dangerous.
Have you ever thought about the quiz? I mean, does it scare you at all?
It scares me, but when I sort of came home and announced that I was going to be the host of the quiz, my wife said, it's a good thing you're not one of the panelists. There's no way I know the answers.
Well, we're listening today to an opera about a deal with the devil. You think opera singers can easily relate?
Oh, I think so. There is a certain amount of that, although... I don't know. I mean, if it sort of affects us all that way, but yeah, it's a great day.
Earlier this season, you were the troubled King Idomeneo here at the Met, and now you're rehearsing to be the troubled Andrea Chenier. Now there's someone who's giving up his life for love, so he's making a deal too.
That's right. He could have flown. He could have flown away. He was given a passport, and he could have made it out, but he chose to hang around to find out who this mysterious woman was who kept writing him letters. He just somehow thought that his destiny would be love.
And even though there are aristocratic characters in the opera, this is considered verismo. It's a realistic story. The music is gut-wrenching, right?
Oh, very much so. It's got some of the finest music. There's 4 arias for tenor, which is why we tenors like to sing it, and 2 amazing duets. But also there's Nemico della Patria for the baritone, one of the only arias for another voice type that I am jealous of. And La Mamma Morte, which is just a standard for spinto sopranos. Wonderful, ripping music.
This is a big tenor destination, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's something that I think once you hear it and once you sing it, you want to go back again and again.
Now, how do you play Chenier?
I don't know if it's, I mean, they're very passionate about everything he does. So I think that's the way that I take a look at it. I rip the heart out and place it on the sleeve and try to, be as passionate about things as I can.
Is that what you try to bring to most of your roles anyway? I mean, even if it's a sort of a more inner and quiet sort of a character, do you try to show some inner passion?
Well, you have to, if it is a quieter kind of a character, you do need to keep it in check, particularly because I do a lot of Wagner. You've got many hours in front of you, so let's not all waste it on this first act. But I think, I want to also show the humanity of the character.
So is doing the Verismo a good departure from all the Wagner that you do?
Oh, I love it. It's such a great change, and I find that to be refreshing. It's kind of good for your voice, and something that I really adore.
Now, this is your first official full Chenier here at the Met. How do you feel about that? You still get the thrill?
Absolutely. I've done it once before in Seattle production, and then 3 or 4 days afterwards, I actually filled in for Luciano Pavarotti in Frankfurt with the Met in concert.
Right.
And then just about a month ago, I sang it on stage, or pardon me, I sang it in concert in Puerto Rico. So, love coming back to this.
So what about some of your cast members? Violetta Urmana is going to be your Maddalena.
Wow, what a singer. She's fantastic, and it's going to be, I think, a wonderful vocal evening. Marc Delavan is Gerard, and he's in fine form, and we've got a really great supporting cast with us as well.
Well, we can't wait to hear it, so thank you, Ben, for stopping by.
My pleasure, thanks.
The sound of the trill is not bright. It's like a sigh. It is a tear.
So are there maybe how many different sorts of trills would you say?
You know, and I some not very good ones.
That's not what I'm asking.
My mother
Styles.
The Faust was. My mother used to send me. She never came backstage. She really didn't like to do that. But after a performance, I remember of Faust, she. Sent me a note before she went home. One of the ushers brought it. It just said, "Sloppy trill, call your teacher."
No.
So, yes, it's. I love to trill, but coloraturists do like to do that. But what really excites me sometimes is when I hear these countertenors, and they really have the ones we have today. The Daniels fellow really has a fabulous trill.
Right.
It's kind of exciting to hear a male voice. When we did the Siege of Corinth in Milan, and Justino Diaz was the bass, Maometto, and he had a wonderful trill, as does Ramey. Ramey has a sensational one. I mean, there are all kinds of them.
Isn't that something?
So the first thing that happens, of course, here, is everybody waits for the trill. Then the second thing, of course, is, Gounod was so precise about here's where you put the bracelet on. I mean, he's telling you everything, and now with super titles, everybody's waiting. It says, here's the bracelet, here's the, here's the necklace.
You can't fudge it.
No, your timing has to be very good, and sometimes it's hard to get the junky jewelry on, and it becomes the focal point.
I guess it is probably junky jewelry. Nobody knows what it really looks like, because whatever reads from the stage is what works, right?
Well, yeah, and a lot of it is on elastic, so that you don't have any fasteners. And
How many bracelets could you not fasten when you were at home, right? Could you imagine doing it on stage?
Can you imagine? So this is she's an interesting girl, Marguerite, in that, as we will learn later, she kills her own child. And the brother is gone off to the wars, and she's alone. And what she must have gone through with the townspeople, being pregnant, and you stop and wonder, how did she who delivered the child with her? Who was with her at the time? And
that's all just not dealt with.
No, and she's such
finale.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever been on stage with a bunch of pumpkins before?
No, I haven't, and here is one of them.
And here is one of them right now.
They look quite good, huh?
Yeah, actually.
It's a real one, I think.
That one's a real one, I think. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Now, Figaro is such a fascinating and wonderful character. Why do you think people love him so much?
I think because he's independent and free and doesn't need anything anyway.
You think so?
Yeah, I think he's one of these people. It's also the kind of time in life when you are like that.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to be older, he becomes very jealous with Susanna and things like that. And but in this time of life, he's just a very happy man.
Yeah, that's the next
And
opera.
he gives a lot also. He wants to help. He has this kind of business going, and everything is, yeah.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
Now, in this production, he's very powerful and he's very sexy. Do you like playing him that way?
I always play him like that. No, I only done him one time before, but he was not a kind of butler.
Mm-hmm. A butler.
Yeah.
A butler. Now, in this production, you get to spend a lot of time out on the passerelle, which is that circular walkway out in front of the orchestra. Do you like being that close to the audience?
Oh yes, it's wonderful. I think it's a very good idea to do it like this. It's such a, it makes Matt intimate in a way.
Do you kind of make eye contact with somebody
Yes,
who's
a lot.
in the audience?
Oh yeah.
Wave
I
at
mean, it's
people?
in my job also to also show them actually that Bartolo is there. You have to look at him and things like that. And they are there and they are happy, smiling. I mean, it would be terrible if they would be like turning away the face.
Right.
But I think they feel safe down there, because sometimes if it is too much that you interfere with the audience, they maybe feel a little unsafe. But they feel safe. They are in the darkness and we are a little higher up, so they can just smile and give us support, which they do a lot.
Do you get smiles out of the orchestra?
Yeah,
too?
the orchestra. They I don't see. They are too far down.
Okay.
Yeah, there's something with the angles there. I don't see them.
Now, this production has gotten really wonderful notices from the audience and from the reviews, both theatrically and musically. You've talked a lot about a relationship between acting and music to you, how you kind of learn them both together, the singing and the acting go together.
Yeah, I don't separate them, I think.
At all?
I think even if you just sing a song, it's about imagination, and actually acting is about this imagination to make this. I mean, there are actors who never move a thing on their body, but they are still acting because they are thinking it. It's about thinking. And I think it's also have to train a lot the singing, but also involve, if you do a vocalise practice, you have to involve the senses in it. You have to make it musical, and if you make it musical, you're making you're communicating.
Right.
So that's the thing. Of course, you have to separate things in some times of life, but you have to put it together. And when you put it together, you cannot separate it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, now back in your native Sweden, there are people listening to this on the radio all over the country and watching in the movie theaters. 20 movie theaters we checked. 20 movie theaters in Sweden.
Can I say something to them?
Absolutely. Say something in Sweden. Say something.
Jag skulle säga hej till min familj. Rosie, Julia och Johanna, jag älskar er och mamma och pappa. Hoppas ni har det trevligt där. Kommer hem på måndag.
Now, I'd ask you to translate that, but you're just saying hi to your family, to your mom and pop.
That I come on Monday, and that I love them.
Oh, very nice, very nice, very nice. Now, you sing this Mozart role, or this Rossini role. You also sing in The Marriage of Figaro in Mozart. When you sing roles so often, how do you keep them fresh?
I think they have. I mean, how do you keep life fresh? You wake up every day, and you have to make something of that day you wake up, and that's your job. And until we are dead, we are making things fresh.
Right.
And that's go for stage, to go for private life.
Yeah. Well, it's great for the American audience to see you live here at the Met singing this role. It's really important to have good chemistry with your co-stars. You seem to have a really fun cast.
Oh, we love each other. It's really it's been fun, and even a day with a lot of pressure, we still. We don't forget our friends.
Right. Well, I was back in the dressing room area. You seemed like you were having a lot of fun back there. Yeah. Joyce DiDonato and Juan Diego Flórez and all those people back there. Right. Well, what is your favorite moment in this opera? Do you have a favorite moment in Barbieri?
I don't know. This role has something to do with building up a lot of pressure and getting off a lot of pressure. It's like after you've done the duet with Rosina, you've done your big stuff, and they are all coming in the beginning of the show. So you build a lot of concentration and tension, and when you've done that and you're happy with that, you feel quite good. But that's a personal thing. I think to play him is always fun, even if you're not singing, even if you're just shaving or doing something. The role has always this kind of big moment, but that's two different things, I think.
Great. Listen, we're going to let you get back to your dressing room and relax in this intermission. We appreciate you taking some time.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
I'm Margaret Juntwaite. Marilyn Horne is my co-host. The role of Figaro has so much latitude. There are so many ways to play him.
Well, first of all, you got to be funny. There's no question about that. But you've also got to be able to sing it. You know, the Largo al Factotum is a very well-known aria. Everybody knows Figaro, Figaro, Figaro. No, but it's really hard to sing. It's a real tour de force. So you've got to come on stage right away and sing a real tour de force aria.
That's right, all those speedy notes, and you have to be able to move your tongue very quickly as well.
You have to be very light on your feet. There's something about Figaro that he seems to be somebody that, you know, is into everything, and there's no question about it. That's what he does.
That's right. He sort of slips in and out of everything throughout this opera.
I've got a whole bunch of them watching there.
And this is her first live opera experience.
She's seen a few videotapes of me, but this is me live. She's probably going to wonder why I'm crying all the time.
Oh, I'm sure you'll explain that. So now tell me, which character in this opera is actually pulling the strings? Most people assume that it's Figaro, but Juan Diego, do you think it's Figaro, or is it Almaviva or Rosina?
Well, it's a little bit everybody, but the Count, you know, the Count is the one who has to disguise first as a drunken soldier that you just saw, and then as the music teacher. I need my wig still and my glasses, but you know, he's the one who tries, who makes the funny moves, and who at the end gets the girl, her.
And what do you think?
Well, I think that's the brilliance of this piece, is everybody's working in tandem between Figaro and the Count and Rosina, and just when everything is lost, one person steps up and bails them out, and that's keeps the comedy fresh on its toes.
Well, and this is a very physical production as well. In fact, Juan Diego, you get to make your entrance from the theater. That's got to be very exciting. Is this the first time that you've ever done something like that? Is it a lot of fun for you?
From the theater, yes, if I recall. And I have to make a big jump. You know, you don't realize it, but I have to jump with both feet, and it's a little hard. But
and of course, this is because he's so eager to get to you.
Right.
And the beginning of the opera starts with a lot of suspense, of course, and it's all leading up to your sort of big famous aria. And how do you feel about that? Is that sort of a lot of pressure, or do you feel raring to go the minute you hit the floorboards, as it were?
It's a mixture of both. Thankfully, I've done this role a number of times before, so I don't have to hit the ground running here at the Met for the first time. It's a very famous aria. Everybody has a record playing in their head of their favorite singer doing it, and I can't compete with that. The thing I want to do is come out and bring it fresh, make them listen a little differently, and make them experience it, hopefully almost like the first time.
Well, now, as someone who doesn't sing a lot of Rossini, that's an understatement, I'm really fascinated by all the coloratura. And is this something that, I mean, it sounds like a real adrenaline rush, of course, but is this something that you can just let go and have a lot of fun with, or do you have to really kind of worry about all those little notes? I would be absolutely panic-stricken, but, you know.
Well, for me, it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of technique, and the idea with your preparation is that you work and work and work so that when you get on stage with it, you can play, and you can throw it off and make it seem like you're improvising it. But it takes a lot of work to get to that point.
And what do you think, Juan Diego? Is it easy for you, or do you have to think about it a lot?
Well, you have to have you know, it has to be natural for you, and then you have to work a lot. But if you don't have disposition for the coloratura, then it's very difficult. But you have to study a lot. And then, as she says, make it sound natural.
And Rossini's been critical to both of your careers. Why do you love his music so much?
It is a challenge, and as you said, it's a bit of a rush to throw off these roulades and have fun with it. But there's also a deeper quality about Rossini, and we'll find out a little bit more in the second half. And it actually ends up getting very close to Verdi, and I love the expression that's possible.
Well, I wish you all the best in the rest of the performance.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming to talk to us.
Thank you. Hi, Kansas City.
I call her Miss because we've never met in person, but Juan Diego's an old friend. And I thought that they hit that you have to really, really work hard to be able to sing it and make it look easy. And then with all of that difficult music, you have to be expressive, as I said before. So, and you have to have your character come through. So it's great preparation and takes tremendous concentration.
And Turandot, you're singing the role. What do you say?
Turandot.
Turandot.
That is the definitive Italian pronunciation, as I have spent much time in Italy, so that's what I've been told by the Italians, and I say Turandot.
And that's what we shall say from now on.
Okay.
Tomorrow is your final dress rehearsal. This is awfully nice that you're with us this evening.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. It's great. we had a last-minute rehearsal this afternoon with Fabio Luisi, who has been kind enough to step in at the last moment to conduct our first few performances. So instead of having a day off today, we had rehearsal with Fabio, and so that's why I just came flying in here on my last breath, because I went home and had something to eat and changed my clothes and took a shower and took a nap, and then realized, oh my God, I have to get down here to Margaret. So I came flying down.
Everybody has been enjoying Fabio Luisi so very much, who have sung for him and
yeah,
and
the
played
thing
for
is,
him.
you know, it's funny. I've known Fabio for, God, it's got to be 10, 12, 15 years. I've been trying desperately to get them to have him come here, because I've sung with him for years in Vienna at the Staatsoper. We did many Don Carloses together, and Aidas and Forsas and things like that at the Staatsoper. And I remember, you know, when I was a kid here at the Met in the Young Artists Program, when I was singing in Vienna, telling them about him and saying, you've got to get Fabio here, you've got to get him here, you've got to get him. So I was so happy when I heard he was coming here, because he is an extraordinary musician, an extraordinary conductor. I mean, orchestras that I know that I've, you know, everybody who's played with him, played under him, played with him, because that's really what it's like. It's, you really make music with him, and that's an extraordinary gift for a conductor to have, that you really feel that you're not playing or singing under him, but that you are actually a part of the piece, a part of the music. And he's not a conductor or an accompanist, or he's really a musician, and it's an incredible experience to make music with him. I love it.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of buzz about him. I was at a dress rehearsal watching him, and someone turned to me, I won't name names, who said, he's such a fabulous conductor.
He is.
And this is a singer, so everyone, people are just crazy about him.
Yeah, I mean, I've loved him for years.
And Marco Armiliato is going to take over half of the...
Yes, he is, and Marco and I are dear friends for many years. We've been making music together also for many years, so I was just very happy and grateful to hear that they were the men who were going to step in to do this.
When you're singing a role that you're known for, Turandot, does it feel welcome in your voice?
Oh, it's like coming home to something. I mean, this season I opened the Chicago Lyric season with it, and then I came here home to the Met to sing Tosca, which was, you know, which was difficult because it was my first time, and perhaps it was a little too rushed. And so in the beginning of the run I had some trouble, and then it got, you know, and then it got really wonderful. And it, unfortunately, I think, you know, many people didn't have a chance to come hear it when it got good, which was partially my fault. I think that I should have maybe waited a little bit, and I made a bad decision. So I apologize to any of you out there who heard the first maybe performance or two when I wasn't as well prepared. The rehearsal period was shorter than I needed as a first-timer for that role. So I apologize again.
But
anyway,
I must say, you know, I'm so used to seeing you in the power roles on stage, and she's a very powerful woman, but to see you up there just sort of flirting and batting your eyelashes was a riot. It was great.
Thanks. Well, I really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot from singing it. And then I will say that then I went back to Chicago to finish out the rest of the run of Turandots, and sang it completely differently. And I've sung well over 100 Turandots, but it was a completely different experience than any of them that I've ever sung, because of the Toscas that I sang here. And then after Chicago, I went to Parma and sang. And Parma, I mean, the Parmigiani are famous for being extremely difficult on singers, and it was my debut there. And I mean, I'm well known in Italy, but I'd never sung there.
How'd that go?
And they went crazy. It was some of the best singing that I've ever done.
And which role
Italy.
were you singing?
I was singing Turandot again, and it was largely because of what happened and what I learned from singing Tosca. It put my voice in a completely different place and taught me a lot of things about placement and about line and about all kinds of things. That it was just an incredible learning experience, and I'm really grateful to have had it. So
isn't it amazing how your career progresses, and every role you take on or every experience you have,
I mean, look,
turns you into someone else on stage?
I think that the one thing that I hope that the public realizes is that we're not machines, you know, and there are people out there who are very passionate about opera, about listening to opera, and about opera singers, and about loving us or not liking us so much or whatever, and if you could only please understand that we really are human, and that we don't have a button to push that says, okay, you put a nickel in here and you push a button and out comes Turandot, or you push a button and out comes Aida, or you push a button and out comes Nabucco. I mean, it's not that simple, and you know, your body goes through a bad phase, or you're having a difficult period of finding something in your voice, or maybe something's going on in your personal life and you're having trouble concentrating, or you're being a little bit, unfortunately, you're being a little bit lazy and you're not focusing properly. I mean, there are a million reasons why we don't do our best all the time, and some of them are certainly our responsibility and our fault, and some of them are simply just because we're not machines, and because our bodies don't respond always the way we want them to. And you know, I get up on that stage, and every time I'm up there, I give 100+%. I want to do my best. I do my very, very best. And you know, sometimes, you know, I don't go online and I don't read reviews because I'm way too sensitive and I care way too much. And it breaks my heart when I read somebody say something horrible about me. It tears me to pieces. So I just don't read it. But you know, when I did, I just thought, my God, why would somebody write something like that? Don't they know that I tried my hardest? I mean, you know, to say some of the things that are said about us out there, it's like, please, you know, understand that we don't go out there to you know, to steal money from people and you know, and do something terrible. I mean, I'm trying my absolute best to give a great performance every time I step out on that stage.
Well, I think anybody would know that who is sitting out in the audience and watching you, because you are clearly giving more than you've got with every performance that I've ever seen you do.
Well, I hope that that's clear. I mean, and maybe perhaps I got in trouble when I was much younger because I gave more than I had, and that you can't do. Now I have a technique and I know when to stop. But, you know, and I know where acting begins and where, you know, where technical singing must continue to take you, and where you can't go over the line. And, you know, there's a balance thing. I mean, I'm 41 and a half years old, whatever, and you know, you learn things with every role you take on and with every new assignment. So it's really a journey, and I'm just beginning in terms of getting into the meat of my career, and hoping to continue to learn and to master my technique, so that I'm able to get better with everything that I do.
Well, let's talk about Turandot for a second. You are probably learning something with every time you sing it, even though it is
Absolutely.
a signature role for you.
Absolutely.
Can you give us for instance, of something you've taken away that's new in that role?
Well, there are a number of things. First of all, I remember singing, oh God, let me see, well, whose production was it? There was a Francesca Zambello's production in Paris, which is a very dark production, and it's beautiful, and it's a very feminist approach, and it's a very all of her warriors are women, and there was a whole the manifestation of the things that happened to Turandot were it was the darkest production I've ever done. And I'm not saying that I was necessarily more angry, because it was in some ways, I mean, it was at the Bastille, but it was much more contained. It wasn't big and over the top like Zeffirelli, and it wasn't but it was angry. So it was a very interesting way of not being, and because it was Francesca, it was a big acting piece. And I have a very strong feeling about Turandot not being, you know, some ice princess and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I think she's a little girl. It's very clear that she's been really, really hurt by this man, by her father, and she's isolated all by herself up there in some tower, you know, and they drag her out for this horrible ceremony. She's probably half lost her mind because she thinks she's this ancestor Lao Ling, and she goes on in this you know, diatribe about, you know, all these years ago, and this thing happened, and then she goes
so
on and on.
Emotionally scarred.
She's damaged goods. But if you think about what she says in the third act, you know, from the first time I saw you, I was afraid of you. So in the first act,
she says to Calleja.
She says that to Calleja. And so in the first act, I mean, it's hard to see it sometimes here at the Met, but I reach for him from that bed all the way up in West End Avenue. I don't know if you can see it in, you know, in the Met production, but in other productions, sometimes it's easier for the audience to see. Is that from the first time I see him, I make a gesture that shows that he's different from the other people who have come. There's something about him. There's some chemical reaction she has to him that says, "Oh my God, this man is different." And so already in the second act, well, you've seen that because she doesn't sing, she doesn't say anything in the first act. But then she comes out in the second act in this big ceremonial nonsense that she's dragged out like a puppet, you know, however, week after week or month after month or however often it happens. And she's put in this situation with a man who she already has some kind of different feeling for. So it's already a strange situation for her because she's got to do this thing she's done over and over again. But it's with this person that she's not quite sure she wants to lose. And in the Zeffirelli production, which is, you know, the funny thing is, I sang my first Turandot ever here at the Met.
This is the one we do here.
This is my favorite production because it was my first production. It's what I learned on. And yes, it is big, and yes, it is, you know, sometimes they call him, you know, Franco B. de Mille and whatever in Italy, but you know, I love it, and so to do what I want to do emotionally and dramatically within that production, whenever I have a moment to glance at him, to reach for him, to show some kind of moment where she's torn, where she's interested in him, where she wants him, where she feels like, no, wait, I don't, you know, I'm asking you these questions that are, you know, that are set up to be traps, but I don't really want to hurt you. I really, really don't want to hurt you. So I think it's a very interesting thing that you learn all these different things largely from the different colors, the different textures of the production, what the supers are wearing, what their characters are, what the different people, what their functions are in the production. Are there acrobats? Are there dancers? What are their functions? What purpose do they serve? What's going on with the chorus? Are they set up against a wall, and are they just there like as a Greek chorus, or are they taking part in the scene? I mean,
you know, if anybody thinks that you put in a coin and In Questa Regia just comes out of your mouth, hearing you talk now. I mean, this is a role that you have done, as you say, over 100 times, and you're still thinking about it like it's brand new to you.
I have to, because otherwise, I mean, when you think about those kids on Broadway who sing, you know, 8 shows a week and over and over and over again, I mean, either the ones who are really good either have great imaginations and sit around and think like this or something, or they're just they must be horrible. Because it's got to be the most boring thing in the world to do the same thing over and over and over again. So I come to it every night as something different, something magical, something has to happen. And whether it's a different interaction with a colleague or something musical that happens with the maestro or something that happens within myself, or it's always different because it's live, and that's the beauty of live theater.
And opening night is
Friday,
and there's a bunch of performances.
Yeah, I'm only singing the first 7, I believe, or 6. I don't even know how many. I wasn't available for all of them, so I am only singing up until, I don't know, whenever, after a couple after the broadcast and the few after that.
And the run of Turandot begins this Friday. We're going to be carrying that opening night here on Sirius.
Oh, good.
Soprano Andrea Gruber is my guest here during intermission. Here at the Met, you're a regular Abigail Nabucco, who's a warrior. You're the power-wielding Princess Turandot. You just took on Tosca, a diva who takes matters into her own hands. And coming up next season, Lady Macbeth.
Yes, another one of my favorite. I just did it for the first time. My dear friend and the most loyal of the people who supported me through my career, through my ups and downs, Spate Jenkins made me my first production last year in Seattle, and I sang it, and I fell in love with this character. I mean, I love the Shakespeare, and I love Verdi, that's a given, but the two of them together are just something.
And it's called Macbeth, but it's practically Lady Macbeth.
Well, I mean, the chemistry between these two characters is, it's just sadistic. What happens between the two of them. Those duets are some of the greatest written. I mean, it's just insane, that music.
And where else have you been singing it?
That's the only place I sang it. Spate made it for me, and there were a couple of places. Actually, that was where I was supposed to be going when I left here. I'm actually now not doing it. We had a problem with the production in Europe, so I'm going to take some time off, which I much need after my first 6 tour